on the set in 3, 2, 1, going live.
All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of HB Unplugged. I'm Mel Craig.
And I'm Don Ramsey.
Wow, we got a great guest, Don. This is going to be cool.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, one of the things
Kelly Miller, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, so what we've been talking about is this HB Unplugged show is all about helping the community. And our guest today, Mr. Kelly Miller, and let's give him a big hand and welcome him aboard and tell him how great everybody is. Look at the crowd we have. Wow. Boy, everybody's going nuts. Awesome. Thank you. Anyway, so, Kelly, what we're trying to accomplish here is put together yet another venue similar to, what you're doing with your organization, right, just to give people another chance to find what's happening in HB from another source. That's about all it is. And we figured Don and I were talking about you quite a bit over the last couple of months because what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish has been nothing short of amazing.
Yeah, we have to have Huntington Beach be on the map as far as tourism, and the number one way we do it is through Visit Huntington Beach.
So, Kelly, you're the CEO and president of Visit Huntington Beach. I mean, It doesn't get any better than that. Rick, I don't know what I'd do without him. He's sort of like my assistant now. My God, look at this. We've had a bunch of guests, and I maybe have a little bit of notes right here for each guest. Rick hands me 2 full pages. First, I want to start off every episode because, number one, you're a God-fearing man. That means a lot to all of us.
Thank you.
Very important. But really, I like to bring up the fact that you have a family. Dude. And so why don't you just talk a little bit about your family, your wife, kids, and
all that stuff? Yeah. So
this is let everyone out there in podcast land to know who Kelly Miller is.
I'm a very blessed man because I grew up in the 49th state. So I grew up in Alaska, which for those podcast listeners out there, it's more than twice the size of Texas.
I've been there, and I was actually stationed in Fort Wainwright.
We talked about that.
Yeah, I was actually stationed there.
Yeah, where it gets cold up there. I was from the southeast of Panhandle. So
Don, it was like we watched the sun go up, and then the sun went down. Like it was like 2.5 hours of light. It was awful. It was terrible. I didn't like it. Go ahead.
Well, I mentioned that I was a fourth generation, and when you grow up in a place that's 1/5 the size of the United States, and southeast Alaska has more coastline than the entire United States. And it was a town of 5,000 when I was growing up. So Juneau's about 30. So why does that matter in what we do today? Is you learn about stories, you learn about connectivity, and you learn about surviving. You learn so many people and stations in life that come in and out, whether it be the military or the state capitol or their timber, mining, fishing, and tourism, which was the big thing that really got me going in this industry.
Wow.
And when the cruise ships would come in, Juneau's about 30,000 now, but the population would double in a day. So there'd be, with the cruise and the passengers, you'd have 30 to 40,000 people.
Oh, so the boats bringing tourists in.
And then they'd leave that
It'd go to 5,000 to 10,000 people.
Yeah. So so now Juneau's about 30, but what really struck me is that was the one opportunity in those 8, 12, 14 hours to impact people's perception about Alaska's capital city.
Wow.
So I was very involved with the state tourism organization up there. I ran the Convention Visitors Bureau at that time. I opened a convention center when I was 27 years old. So that really plunged me into the deep end up there.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, and what you really learn how to do is, I think you learn how to be hospitable, and you learn because people want to know all there is to know about Alaska. Because in many cases, that might have been their first or second stop coming up the Inside Passage, just north of Seattle. And that just really inspired me to do where I am today. So I think from there, I married a lady, and then we ended up moving down to Atlanta.
Yeah.
And now I'm married to a different woman. But what's important about that, when we moved, I was involved with the Atlanta Convention Visitors Bureau. And that was really big time. That's everything you could possibly... Big city. Yeah. And at that time, Atlanta was not known as this vibrant southern city. If you can recall, there was where Dr. King was murdered, and his birthplace was right next to the Capitol in Atlanta, Georgia. So there was this perception of what Atlanta was or wasn't. Then everything changed in the early 90s when we got the Olympics. And I was very fortunate to be asked to be the Olympic marketing manager for the Convention Visitors Bureau. So we worked very closely, what would be the equivalent of LA28.
Wow.
But it was called ACOG, the Atlantic Committee on the Olympic Games. So we did these incredible programs. We invited the top NBCs of the world, all the broadcasters from the major countries. We brought them in. We had 19 film crews, and we put them on 2 major buses, like Best VIP, like Todd, right? And we took them all throughout Georgia and to all the major venues. And we had like Evander Holyfield at Georgia Tech for the boxing competition. We went up to the Coy River. We had Jacoby, who was a big guy for the U.S. as far as canoe kayak goes. And we went to, did the first wave in the new Olympic track and field. So why is that important? Is it changed the perception around the world about what Southeast United States and what Atlanta was.
Wow, what an impact. Unreal.
So then I had a chance to go to Asheville, and I did the same thing for 12 years. And again, working in the family pieces here, but met a lady we were at a trade show, and I was working for the Asheville Convention Visit Bureau, met in Berlin, and asked her to marry me 6 weeks later, and she moved from London to Asheville and became the stepmother of my 2 children. But how it relates to Huntington Beach is at that time, Asheville was a really, I wouldn't call it a quaint mountain town, but wasn't as popular as it is now. And so what happened is September 11th happened. So then people said,
9/11.
yeah, where are we going to go? So as you can recall, people were staying away from the major cities. We were about 3 hours north of Atlanta. We weren't that far from Charlotte, Raleigh, D.C., other places in Virginia, and so in Tennessee. So people just started to flock there. And we built that team. We built the brand. They have a budget of 40-some million now, huge operation. And I really did cut my chops even more about how to connect, like the Alaska story, with new visitors and stuff, right? We started a sports commission up there, started a product development fund that ended up giving tens of millions of dollars to major developments all throughout the region.
Wow.
And had a chance then to go work for the Tampa Convention and Visit Bureau for a while. And then I got a call to, are you interested to come out here? And that was over almost 12 years ago. And my wife, God bless.
Wait. Who
called who? Yeah.
That's a great question. Paul Devitt, who was the general manager of the Hyatt at the time, who'd also worked at a hotel before that in Newport Beach, he had talked to Gary Sherwin, my counterpart at Visit Newport Beach. He said, hey, Steve Bone, my predecessor, is retiring. Who do you think we should talk to?
Recommended.
So Gary calls me and says, hey, do you want to kind of be considered to come out here to Southern California? I said,
And that was 12 years ago?
be 12 years on
Wow.
this September.
Wow.
So I said, you know what? I think so. So I threw my name in the hat and had an opportunity to come out here, brought my wife, Kate, and Brett Barnes was the chairman at the time. And Brett
fits into everything.
yeah, and J.D. Schaefer was at the Hilton. God, there were a bunch of players. Steve Dodge, who now is retired. Just a great board. And I made it through the interview process. And I was 4th of July. I'm at Hilton Head Island. And my phone rings. And it's Brett Barnes. And he says, Mr. President, CEO, how are you today? So I said, did I get the job? He said, absolutely. So
Wow, fantastic.
it was a great 4th of July.
Wow.
And we packed up our cars, 2 cars, and we drove across the country. Went through the southern part of the United States, went through Mississippi, Alabama, Texas, you name it. And we showed up here, and I started on Labor Day weekend.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because, I mean, I'm amazed. I'm sure Don is too. You know, you start talking about tourism and being a CEO and president of, I don't know, a touring, I'm not sure how to word it, but you just blew my mind with all the imagine the impact you have on a city like Atlanta, the impact that you just announced. Wow. I mean, so now I'm seeing a bigger picture of what you're doing with Huntington Beach.
Yeah, you know, it's like you do with cars, or Don, you do with playing a cover song, right? You learn through the decades on how to do it better.
Yeah,
and
a very good point.
And there's in our world, I'm in my 35th or 36th year in tourism, and what happens is you see an opportunity, and you kind of know verse chorus, use a song analogy again, and you can kind of figure out how to get there, but you have to kind of get people all on the same page. Like who's going to do the solo here, and how you finish a song, and how do you go from the chorus to back to the bridge and all that stuff. And tourism's like that. You have to, particularly when you are working in a community like Huntington Beach, which is 200,000. What may sound logical. You got to take a step back sometimes and realize that there are key stakeholders you got to bring along on this journey, right? And sometimes they're a chorus, sometimes they're doing the solos in that example, but you can't go too fast and too quick. And I've learned through the decades that you got to do it in the right way, in the right tone and tenor. So that involves city council, it involved like Pacific City, involves the downtown bid, the Chamber of Commerce, Bellaterra, 5 Points, all those entities that make up the voices that we want our visitors to hear.
Wow, unreal.
Yeah, it's amazing.
You know, it's funny because Rick brought this up, and I know you got a $6 million budget.
It's about 12 now. So.
Oh wow. Let's talk. So really, this is kind of interesting because Rick brought some things to my attention. I didn't even know this, but we actually have 21 total hotels in Huntington Beach.
Got about 24.
Okay.
And then you have another 220 or so short-term vacation rentals.
Oh, B&Bs and things like that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. And how does that play into, this budget?
Great
really,
question.
what does it take to run,
Right.
Visit HB?
Right. So we'll go back to the first question because I'm so glad you asked that.
Oh, good.
Well, aren't you part of the city? No, we're not a city department. We're a private nonprofit organization, and we're called like a convention visitors bureau. But the more modern term is we are a destination management or destination marketing organization. So what we do is we figure out a way to get permanent, predictable funding, and we do that through what's called a tourism business improvement district, and it's 6%. So when somebody checks into a hotel, say it's $100 a room night, which would be a great hotel room rate in Huntington Beach. But when I check out, I'm paying $100. Hotel keeps that. Then they charge another 6%, which is the assessment that funds all of our operation. And very few people know this. They also put on a 10% tax, and that's called the occupancy tax. And the city keeps all of that. And that's generated almost $250 million since the occupancy tax started in the early 90s. So think about that. That's a lot of money.
Wow.
And other than cigarettes, booze, and gas, the tourism industry is the most taxed industry through the TOT, but we give that back to the city. So what we do is the people listening that are in this audience or residents, they don't pay a dime for our operation. But with the assessment, it keeps our feet to the fire because we have to prove a return on investment for that assessment. So the hotels and B&Bs, they say, we're okay with the assessment. And they give it to the city, then the city reimburses us back that money when they send in their remittance.
Oh my, what a...
And so then from there, then we build a strat plan and we build an annual program of work, and we have departments that go out there. And so how does all that work? So let's say that you want to come to Huntington Beach and you live in Myrtle Beach, and you might go to our website, surfcityusa.com. So between the website, Instagram, Facebook, X, Pinterest, and all those other social media channels, and our website, there's almost 2 million eyeballs a year that come to our sites. And so that we encourage them.
That's 2 million tourists a year.
Yeah, well, I should say some user sessions. There's probably some multiple same people in there, but about 2 million sets of engagement. And then they say, well, darn, I was thinking about maybe going to Palm Springs. I was thinking about San Diego. Well, let's consider Huntington Beach. So then they go and they see the rooms. They see what special events are coming up. Might be the Jax Pro that's happening right now.
Yeah.
Might be Surfscape that SEMA's doing. It might be the U.S. Open. It might be the Air Show. And then they plan their holiday. And then they look to see, here's the restaurants. Let's make a reservation at Duke's, for example. And that's the planning process, right? And what we try and do is we try and instill in their minds and hearts the differentiation of us versus, say, Newport Beach. And what we say is that we are the...
Or any community in the U.S.
Yeah. And believe me, there's a lot of competition.
Local competition is what he's talking
Yeah,
about.
you got a lot of places to go.
Right. So what we do in all of our brand work, in everything that our voice and how we talk and what the kind of posts we do and the imaging and the photography and the podcasters like you all that we host from all over the world, our bottom line is, and our brand promise is, if you come to Huntington Beach, this is the quintessential California beach destination experience.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's what it is.
And we back it up by all the great events we do.
That's right.
I mean, who does more events than
Right.
we do and actually packs this town? I mean,
Right.
nobody.
Right.
Yeah, I always share with people when you go into a lot of the surf shops today, 80% of the people in that surf shop, especially during May through October, are not locals.
That's right.
And they're buying the surf gear to take back to Kansas Nebraska. It's the surf culture that we offer people here, because once you arrive, Karen and I joke, we've said this many times already, we have this patio we built in our backyard that's like a paradise. And we always go back there, have a glass of wine or barbecue, and we're sitting there going, where want to go on vacation where? And we're sitting there going, why should we leave? Why should we go anywhere? Look where we live right now. And when it comes down to this, in layman's terms, what does this mean for the tourists that come here? What really, you've kind of hit the financial side, like
right.
We're doing all we can to attract the tourists. What does it mean for the tourists once they arrive?
Yeah, so what our research has shown, and the people that we've hired and that are on this great team called VHB, there's a couple things what it means to them. They've often commented about how genuine and authentic and hospitable people are, whether you're at Sugar Shack, whether you walk in, they meet you or Don at HSS or Jack's.
Yeah.
And they always comment about how friendly people are here. That is one of the number one things they say.
So when I did the last pier event with the VW buses, and Volkswagen of America is right at the opening where you come onto the pier. And so they couldn't put an ID buzz because they were really hard to get at that time, but they brought this really nice 23 window 1963
really cool bus,
in mint condition bus. And the guy from Volkswagen, was giving out stuff and talking to people. And after the event is over, he looks at Courtney McKenna and me and says, Huntington Beach has the nicest people ever. And this is a guy that
travels
does all
events,
of the United
all
States.
over the world, yeah.
And he goes, wow, people in Huntington Beach, they're just so nice. And it's just exactly what you're saying. People say that about our town. We're just like, I guess it's because we're so stoked.
Yeah.
I also think, just to play off what Don said, when you go to, say, like Jackson Hole, where my wife used to represent them in the UK when we met in Berlin. So, that's the steep and deep. That's where you go, and it's just a real mountain experience. And I think there's also something to be said. Not only we are authentic, we're genuine, and then people are hospitable, but when they walk that pier and they go out there and they see Dawn Patrol and they see the sunset and they smell the smoke and they see volleyball players and they go to the the ISM, and then they go to the Walk of Fame and the Hall of Fame, and there's the Duke statue. This is in their heart. They say, this is Surf City, USA.
Yeah, we obviously proved that with San Jose. I mean, that went down as a legal battle. Santa Cruz. Yeah, and it was a legal battle that we won, and we are Surf City, and there's no doubt about it. Which is very interesting, because this is on, the minds of everybody. Is where do the negotiations stand right now with the Olympic Committee? And this is like we need the Olympics.
You knew this question was coming.
You had to know it's coming. You had to know it's coming.
Well, before we jump into that, let me just finish this train of thought here. So you got people that are going to come here. They come here. It's authentic. But there's also, if you come as a visitor, we want people to come back more often, stay longer, tell more people, and spend more money. And if we do our job right, they will. And what they'll do is they come here as a visitor and they'll say, hey, I'm Mel. I'm in this association about detailing cars, and so let's bring our convention here. So that's a big part of what we do. There are months, non-summer months, kind of we call it shoulder season, where we'll run almost 50% of the hotel blocks in a major hotel will be groups.
Wow.
And we booked 85,000 room nights last year. We're going to do that again this year. We'll eventually get to 100,000 room nights. So those are people coming in midweek, usually off season, and they're just looking for a safe place to eat, dine, and lay their head, right? So that's a big part of that other piece of that.
Put their toes through the nice sand of the beach and dip them in the water.
Yeah. So talking about the Olympics, right?
Oh, yeah.
The thing that's on everybody's mind. I will either confirm or deny the allegations.
I got it.
So we have been very fortunate to be in the conversation for 5 or 6 years now. So we've come a long way, as the old song would say, right? So I think when the bid was first put together for 2024, Huntington Beach wasn't even truly mentioned, right?
Real quick.
Yeah.
What is the bid? A lot of people might not know that.
The
bid, BID.
Yeah, so I'm talking about the bid that LA put together.
Oh, the bid. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
the quote.
Yeah. So they went out, and a dear friend of mine drove around with some of the key people up there, and they kind of says, okay, here we're going to do this. Then what happened is the IOC decided, well, let's give Paris 2024 and we'll do LA 2028. So there was a little bit of time to look at venues, and they have to do 50 venues, and they've announced 30 of them, and the one that hasn't been announced yet is surfing. There's some others that haven't been announced yet: indoor volleyball, beach volleyball, and some other things. So what we've done is, when asked, we provide all the pertinent information that they would want to be able to put in a huge spreadsheet and make a learned decision. And it gets, having worked the games in Atlanta, how it works is you got to present several options. So LA28, they're going through those options as we speak. And then what they'll do is they'll turn those options into the IOC. And they are now probably going to be some announcements on April 9th. Maybe not all the venues, but certainly some. And so we've given everything that we need to give. And they'll say, okay, they'll look at this. They'll say, well, okay, costs have gone up. Got transportation concerns. We want to sell as many tickets as we can. We want to have programming opportunities for Olympic sponsors, et cetera. Where's the best place to do that? And we've suggested that we probably are the best possible venue for that.
All things considered.
All things considered. It's a straight business decision. Politics really doesn't enter into it that much, and I respect that, because I would rather us be judged on the merits of our surfing here,
Yes,
and how it all works, and safety,
And the community,
and the community, and all that stuff. And so we're just kind of, we've been asking this woman out for 5 or 6 years now. We're hoping she says yes.
So he and I have, how many times have we, for how many years have we been talking about this?
It was so funny. Here's a funny story. So Don comes in, we need to get the Olympics here. We got to get it. We need to drive to LA. Let's go up there right now.
Drive to LA.
After I got it, some more Ritalin and Adderall in his system. And then as we talked it through, and you were so kind, because what I said, listen, here's how it works. If you come in with a sledgehammer versus a scalpel, it's not going to work so well. So let's kind of systematically do this, and let's see how it all plays out. And he's been a big part of that. You've met some of those people that have come down from LA28, and the IOC was here several times.
Yeah.
In fact, during the ISA World Surfing Games.
Yes.
Which, sidebar, to be in the game, you gotta make sure that you are the Federation ISA, and Fernando and Bob, you want to make sure that they know who you are. So we've hosted 5 ISA events since 2007.
And they've all been successful.
All been
so
successful.
great.
They're such great
They're
events.
great events. Great events.
Well, the more I listen to this, the more I think we're really in the running.
We are.
And I understand San Clemente's,
Lowers.
Lowers.
Oh,
Yeah.
There-
So as long as we're talking openly here, right? If I was the, gun to my head, so to speak, so why Huntington Beach? And I'm not. I think the most important thing is that it's going to be in Orange County. That is absolutely key. Tokyo, there were no people there, and that was a little bit of a drive from downtown.
Chris Cole went there with you and told me it was ridiculous.
We went to Ichinomiya, Chiba.
Yeah.
We went there. It was a little bit of a haul. And then we went to Tahiti, and there were no fans there per se. Back up, but Tokyo didn't have any because of COVID. So this is the first opportunity where I think competitors in surfing will be able to be surrounded by a huge venue and arena of cheering fans.
Yeah.
And Lowers is a great wave. Don't get me wrong. It's tougher to get to.
Yeah, the transportation to get there. One of the things I keep thinking is there's so many people that want to watch surfing, from young to old. And there's so many surfers today still surfing at 70, 80, 90 years
Absolutely.
old. But they have issues with knees and foot problems and stuff. And to be able to walk down to trestles, it's such a long hike, and it'd be kind of a very difficult thing to do.
In fact, accessibility is one of our key check the box, because we hosted
Parking and
we've hosted parasurfing here twice the last 2 years, the World Championships, and one of the reasons we were selected is because the competitors could get down there easily. So we talk about these 3 Ps. We talk about predictability. So our waves are arguably the most predictable waves as far as competition quality in all of California. So trestles may on any given day might be a little better, but we know we have consistent waves. The second thing is profitability that we've already touched on. The number of tickets, the amount of merchandise, and the amount of, think about if you could go down there like Surfscape, which is coming up at the end of the month. So if you think about it like a mini World's Fair, but you go through there and there's the surfing competition. And as you're winding your way through in between heats or afterwards, then you go into this sort of a experience and activation where you're experiencing surf culture from around the world, right? Yeah. Wouldn't that be cool? Because this is the chance that the surf industry can truly elevate itself, and I think more than the trestles location. And then we talk about profitability. We've already talked about that. and the programming piece, which I think I just mentioned. So those are the three big P's. And
I'm in. I'm going to the. If the Olympics here, I'm going to show up.
yeah,
You sold me.
yeah, and the sunset. And when you think about this, if you think of California, and you think about people coming from around the world, and they have this image, like we mentioned earlier, about the quintessential California beach destination, and we have a pier. When I think of California beaches and iconic places, I think piers.
Huntington Beach.
Santa Monica, even Newport has a pier, but that's what I like. And I think people expect that. And as the sunsets and the porpoise are out there and the dolphins and the pelicans are overhead and there's surfers outside the view shed and they're doing their thing, I think it's just an iconic setting.
Oh, man. Yeah, we live in Surf City, USA. And
We do.
And it doesn't get any better than that. Two questions I have. One, well, actually, they're kind of both touch on each other. We have two big events, the U.S. Open of Surfing and the Air Show. And whenever I go down to the U.S. Open, as you know, it's 10 days long. So in any given day, you can go down. It's amazing to see how many bicycles are down at the pier for about almost 3/4 of a mile parked, and then another almost to the bend where the condos are parked on the side. And it keeps bringing my attention. How many people show up for the U.S. Open and the U.S. Air Show? The Pacific Air Show.
Air Show is about 700 to 750 in the last economic impact deal we did.
3 days.
3 days.
Yeah. And that
750,000 people.
And keep in mind, that's just the people that we could kind of geofence and kind of say, here's who came. But there's a ton of people that are on boats and who just show up right around the corner from here and say, hey, let's sit outside.
Yeah, a lot of people, that's interesting because when you go to the air show, you stand on the beach and look out in the ocean, you see 1,000 boats.
Right.
Go ahead.
The U.S. Open gets about 400 to 450.
Wow.
Those are our two biggest events.
Right.
Then you got the 4th of July is probably right there. Probably just maybe people say the biggest parade west of the Mississippi. And if you say it long enough, it's going to be a fact. So it's probably accurate somewhere in there. So those are our big three. Then you got the Surf City Marathon and some others that kind of fill in the blank.
I always thought the marathon was very big.
Cowabunga Van Clan on the Huntington.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the number one event.
Yeah.
And you know what? So let's talk bikes real quick. So we're working with the city real quick to do a bike ballet. I just was up in Sacramento for a meeting, and the Kings were playing, and there's a group here, and they do bike ballet. And they have a thing called Bottle Rocket. Does they do that up there? A big festival? I think that's where they do it. Something
The
like
Bottle Rockets, yeah.
And they did 1,100 bikes. They checked in. So it's all QR code. You drop your bike, you do this. They take backpacks too. So we're working with the city to hopefully launch something this summer. Where
I'm a little lost. What does that mean?
So let's say,
is it a bike cruise? Is it a
bike ballet?
No,
So you take your bike and somebody watches your bike and you go hang out at the open. You don't have to worry about it getting stolen.
Oh.
So and this has been an
Bike parking
idea for a while. I remember it would be right on 5th Street, and everybody would.
That's so friggin' awesome.
Yeah,
that's a great idea.
I know. You want to make it easy, particularly with festivals and particularly with the Olympics. We're going to work on how, if we get it, how you get down there to the footprint easily. Because if you don't do the messaging up front, what do the locals say? Oh, I'm not going downtown. Can't get a place to park. What am I going to do? So you got to over communicate on how you can experience big events like the Olympics.
Yeah.
One more last thing that I really want to talk about is how safe is Huntington Beach?
It's interesting you say that. I've lived in 8 states, some of those several times. I've lived in some areas that have been a challenge, say late at night. I think that when alcohol becomes a player sometimes late at night, that could have been an issue. But here's what's happening in the culture right now. People are doing mocktails more than ever before. The price of drinking is getting rather expensive. They'd rather have a great meal and maybe drink less. And there's also some edible stuff, as you know, is getting very popular. So I think the days of going out and ordering the 5 Long Island iced teas back when we were all younger, I think they're over.
Oh, I never did any of that.
No, yeah. So
Don never did any of that.
What I think what happens with Huntington, I've heard 2 stories recently to support this. I think there's a reputation, there's a reality. And I know that when we, in COVID, and we had first, second, third block closed, that the police reported to us that there were lower numbers of incidents. And so I think that combined with people just being more aware, they're not drinking as much and hitting the road, I think you're seeing a cultural shift. And so, but the two stories that I had, one in particular, one guy said, yeah, it used to be really bad when you were down here late at night. I wouldn't want to do that. And then I said, hey, you know what? Things have really changed. You come down here. Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. And so we moved on. So I think there's a reputation and reality.
Right.
Kind of a difference. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally does. You know, one of the things that, you know, you're here for is because, you know, people really need to see Huntington Beach. And once they see it the first time, so large a percentage come back. They love it that much. I mean, people start talking about, honey, we need to move here. We need to buy a house here. I mean, it really happens a lot. But, you know, the question I want to ask is, when it comes to finding out more about HB, the community, the events and stuff, how does Visit HB, how does it help the person looking to find what they want or what they need or what they're looking for in a vacation or maybe a move, you know, maybe a career change or something like that?
www.surfcityusa.com. That's the place to go.
And what's the website have to offer?
Well, you got everything from calendar events, hotels, packages, what's happening. We have a walking tour in Sunset Beach. We have one here. We have a barrel trail. We have our visitor center, which is right off underneath Shorebreak. We have the kiosk. So if you go in there, there's a whole plethora of brochures and stuff. You want to do a cruise in the harbor, you can do that.
Yeah.
And shopping and dining, and we'll call and make reservations for you. So it's kind of a one-stop shop.
You have a great calendar.
We have a great calendar, and we populate that a lot. We put out little flyers, and I just saw something at the visitor center that we do. It's kind of like happy hours. Right now we're talking about drinking, but no, and brunches and what's open during Thanksgiving as far as restaurants go. So we tend to we put things out there for the people that are really relevant for when they're in town.
Oh, good. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
And then go ahead.
Good. You know, Don and I were talking about this last night, and I tried to remember what it was, Don, and I finally did. It's called Around HB. Now, I've done some research, and they're popping up on social media, and it's a really elaborate calendar of events, but we can't find who's the owner. Do you know anything about it? Or
I don't, but I'll find out.
Yeah, it's Around HB, and
they put up all the bands that are playing wherever.
Bands, events, everything they're putting up. You know, they're even getting to the point.
It's a Facebook page that started probably about 3 or 4 months ago.
Yeah,
and they're very current.
Oh, that's cool.
And I can't find who started it. I can't see names. There's no phone numbers. There's no email. It's just they've just put the calendar up.
We worked with Chris Epting. We have this whole thing kind of like Uncovered HB. So we have a YouTube channel. So if you go to that, you can see a whole bunch of content on there, all kinds of historical sort of. It's really great. And he's quite a character, as you know. He knows the city inside out. Yeah. And then we spent over $1 million on wayfinding. So you want to be able to remind people, or they might not even know. Like I was just coming
all
up.
the signs that you see driving down the street, and it say the Balsa Chica Reserve is this way, or the Central Park is over here.
We paid for that.
Yeah, they paid for that.
See, you learn something new every day.
Yeah.
Wow. I had no idea your responsibility. I mean, literally, my hat's off to you because, wow, I had no idea there was that much responsibility.
Neither did I till I said it.
There you go. And when you're saying something about, you know, one of the things you said about the history of Huntington Beach, actually, I was recently invited by Pat Burns to do an interview with the Daily News that came over from Europe, from the UK.
Yep.
And I was supposed to be interviewed, and I ended up with a bad tooth. I asked Rick, please see if Don will fill in for me. You know, we're sitting with really one of Huntington Beach's historians. I mean, I got a chance to sit with Don for a couple hours, and he started going on. He said one day we got to get in the bus, and he's going to take me around because all the things that he's grown up and done, you know, the history. And I guess that's what I want to mention because what people don't really know, there is a massive history about Huntington Beach. There's so much exciting history that is fascinating to listen.
People don't know, like, I don't want to.
Go.
But the Saturn V rocket fuel cell that Douglas won the bid for, and they built Douglas aircraft over on Balsa Chica and Balsa. 5,000 engineers and people moved from all over Southern California that worked for Douglas, and my dad was an aeronautical engineer. And that's really, so when we first moved here, Huntington Beach was districts, and in between all the districts was strawberry fields and cornfields, and it was everywhere. There was the downtown, Wintersburg, Metal Arc Heights, different places like this. And it wasn't one big town, but after Douglas came in, they needed barbershops and ice cream stores and restaurants and so
Grocery
all these
stores,
little
gas
strip
stations, yeah.
strip malls started happening. They started building track homes and all this stuff. But one thing that when we were in that interview the other day, I was telling the two people that were interviewing us from the UK, you know, how some things happened here, and really without Douglas getting that bid to build the
contract,
Saturn
yeah.
V rocket fuel cell that propelled the first rocket to the moon in 1969. Who
knows where Huntington
Yeah.
Beach would be?
Yeah, how it
would
would
it
have
ended
happened.
up being,
But
yeah.
really, our town is on, you know, a lot of different things. But
Undoubtedly.
certainly the aerospace.
You can't argue with that. There's so
happened
much
here.
history here. People think it's just Surf City, but there's so many things that have happened here and taken place here that has actually changed culture. It's actually changed other communities. I mean, I tell everyone this. I grew up in San Diego, Carlsbad, which was a super huge surf community. But there's nothing like Huntington Beach surf community and what we've developed here. You know, the way it works, you know, people going back to, you know, when you start thinking about the people that came out of Huntington Beach that are legends today in the entire surfing world.
Oh yeah.
It's just incredible.
Even George Freeth, you know, Henry Huntington, bringing him down.
Yeah.
Huntington Beach showed up, and 5,000 people. They opened up the new pier. 1913.
Yeah, something like that.
1914, and we did the 100 years of surf in celebration of that. But 5,000 people showed up on a Friday in June to watch a man walk on water. No one had ever seen a surfer before. The next day, there were 10,000 people to see George Freeth, who was a little bit older than Duke Hanamoko, and he came from Hawaii, and Henry Huntington brought him down on the red trolley to Huntington Beach to try and sell lots and all that stuff. So it's just an amazing story.
And Duke Hanamoko used to be here during the Western Surf Contest when the U.S. Open of Surfing first started in
That's
59.
right.
Duke was there every year till he
That's
died
right.
in January of 1968. So
That's right.
The summer of 67 was the last time he was here, but he was here for 8 years in a row.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Boys of Summer, and just look at the Bud and Jean. There's just so much rich history about it.
Hey, last thing.
Yo.
So people need to know this. If we did get the Olympics here, the way the surfing competition would be on the north side.
Oh my God.
That's right. A little bit better swell over there.
I'm telling
Better
you,
waves.
I'm telling you, there's no venue that can compete with us. The parking, the beach, the room to sit. You know,
I know.
It's got everything. The restaurants, the hotels, everything's like you just walk out your restaurant or walk out the hotel or walk out, any venue, and you walk down to watch the surfing contest. Oh, let's go get a bite to eat and then come back and watch a little more.
Yeah.
You can't do that anywhere else.
I know.
You're not stuck there.
I know. And what happens is, so just so you know, there's these things called the TOP sponsors. They're about $200 million a pop to be a major Olympic sponsor. And every 4 years, of course, then you got the Winter Games. But so the Deltas and the Home Depots and the Visas, they bring in all these flights of their customers. And they usually do it 3 times. So beginning of the games, and there's a middle flight that comes in, and there's an evening later toward the last 5 or 6 days. So what they do is they come in and they, the great restaurants that we all love and enjoy here, they rent them out.
Oh.
And they go from the hotels, even if they're staying in LA, they come down, they're watching the surfing, then they're going to go over and they're going to have dinner somewhere. And it's just going to be, once you are an Olympic venue destination like Huntington Beach, if we were to be blessed to get this, you will always be known as that.
Wow.
Calgary, right? You go down the luge run, you go to Whistler. And
The impact will last for decades.
Years,
for decades.
years and years.
Decades.
Yeah.
So,
Unreal.
fingers crossed.
Come on.
Yeah, we're all chomping at the bit. We want it. U.S. Open, get here, do it. No argument, just be here. Well, thank you, Kelly Miller.
Oh, you're
awesome.
welcome.
Yeah, God, we learned a lot. I mean, every time I get with Don, I learn something, and now Rick is teaching me a lot of stuff. I'm becoming educated. Like, wow, I'm learning so much more.
Was there any question that you wanted to ask that I didn't ask? Answer.
No,
All good?
Well,
Rick, you got anything?
I mean, we see each other at all the different events,
Rick.
but yeah.
You good? Yeah. Rick's sitting over here. We don't know what we're talking about. There's Rick, just so you know, Rick's role here is really important because as we grow the show, we're looking for sponsors and donators and things like that. We want to grow this thing as well. We just need to build the content. We really grow this thing. And Rick is really helping us.
That's great.
He's been very instrumental in designing the shows and getting me information I need to ask the right questions and things. And actually been a big part of getting the right guest on the show. So Rick Brown is... he's been on the episode with us twice. He actually filled in for Don. Don had a football game he had to go to with his grandson, but Rick was able to, thank God he showed up because he was able to sit in and be the co-host for the day, and he did a really good job. But yeah, so Rick plays a big part of helping us grow this
great,
thing. And,
great.
And again, it's just, the reason I wanted you on this show is to show you that, we've plugged you a couple times even prior to this, talking about you and what you do and what you're trying to do. And we just feel like we want to be an enhancement to what you're trying to build. And by the way, it's nonprofit. Right?
We're a private nonprofit.
Is there any of our listeners or locals in Huntington Beach can help in any way? Or
Yeah, we have a pretty good volunteer program. If you want to come out and you sit at like the Jack's Pro, we train you, and you're down there and you get to answer visitor questions about where's a great place to eat, where can I go shopping. That's you giving back to those residents. And I will just say one last thing: if someone were to say to me, other than the brand promise, but what is it that you really, if you're really successful in what you do, what does that look like? How do you define success? And I'd say from January 1 through December 31, that we don't have an EKG of economic activity, that you rise that up to here. So people are busy from the first day of the year to the last, which means servers at Duke's, parking revenues, police predictability on who's going to be on shift, retail, all that stuff knows that they're going to be successful year round as opposed to seasonality. And that's the true mark of a great marketing organization. People here.
We have one event after another. And
there's never a dull moment. Never a dull moment.
Help the economy. There's just so many reasons why our town is just off the hook.
Off the hook, man.
There's one idea.
Corky Fest next weekend.
I know.
Yes.
I want to run this by you because we're going to do this. This is a really cool idea, and I haven't even shared it with Don
This
yet,
is chapter 2 of the podcast.
Yeah,
So keep rolling here.
Yes.
Paid prescription only or paid subscription.
This is, as an added bonus, here's what you get.
Don't answer yet.
So, I wanted to run this by Don, but, I always, when I started the Hot Rod cruise down Main Street, I always wanted to approach you and the resorts.
Yeah.
Because I think a great attraction to Huntington Beach would be, hey, take a bus ride for the day. Take a VW bus ride for the day with a couple locals or a couple guys that we can train. And what they do is if they're here some people come, they're staying here for a week. There's a couple days that they might not have something planned. And we could let the resort know, hey, take a bus ride for a day. Take a bus ride for, lunch in a bus, or breakfast in a bus ride, something like that, where the tourist has a chance to say, I want to ride in a Volkswagen bus.
Let me tell you, the pilots from the air show.
Oh, God. It's like.
They all want to ride in buses.
It's so much fun.
You know the story behind that, but they all are stoked. Wow, we're in a VW bus.
Is that a good idea?
So I'll give you some free packaging advice on that real quick.
Okay.
So, because in my tenure, I've heard a lot of great stories about the best mousetrap. First off, it's a good mousetrap idea. What you need to do is you got to package it in a certain way. So someone's going to probably be 2 hours, maybe 3.
Right.
So you need to figure out how they can buy it online, how you can make sure that you can operationalize it, and make sure that you are making sure that you don't run over, but you're there, you're dependable, and I think you would sell some tickets. And you do it as a pilot program. You just see how it goes.
Right.
Then tweak it from there. And if you do that, I think in a couple of years you'd be successful.
Yeah.
I really do.
We'll rock and roll. Well, Kelly Miller,
Do it, man.
Thank you for joining us on
You're
HB
welcome.
Unplugged, and anything we can do to help you with VHB, we're there for you as well.
Thank you.
It means a lot. I'm Mel Craig.
And I'm Don Ramsey.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of HB Unplugged. Woo-hoo-hoo.